Why so serious? Let's put a smile on that face. I don't want to kill you. What would I do without you?
Welcome once again, everyone, to Geekfest Rants. Today we are continuing with part 2 of our sequels that are better than the original special. Joining me again is Michael Sutton and Michael Conway. So let's pick it up where we left off last time.
Michael, what is next on your list?
My next one would have to be Spider-Man 2. Again, like the first one, yes, it was filmed in Queens. Actually, there are scenes in Forest Hills, so that was pretty cool. But I like the second one. It just went into Spider-Man being Spider-Man. Doc Ock was great. I thought the special effects were better. I thought the story moved better. And again, it was just, to me, it was a more fun movie. He had his first real adversary. I liked the Green Goblin in the first one. I didn't like it that it was armor, and I don't know. It didn't grab me that much.
So you went around with the tights, huh?
But not the tights. But I didn't like the whole look of the armor. It was just too metallic.
Well,
I wanted something a little more organic. But the second one became what Dr. Octopus was. He had mechanical arms on a human skeleton and flesh, and it just, to me, it was much better. I thought it moved better. It looked better. It was a lot more fun to watch. I mean, I'm sorry, but I like the first one.
I personally like the first one more than the second one, but maybe I'm a sucker for an origin movie, and you have to do that. You better X-Men 2 better than X-Men 1 because you don't have to do the origin, but for Spider-Man, you know it's just one character, and like it goes from the geek high school kid to superhero to hero to whatever.
Yeah, I agree. For some reason, for me, it's the reverse, like you said. For X-Men, I like the second. For this one, I like the first. And the only reason is because, to me, this kind of movie is kind of like an Iron Man type of film. When they get around to making a sequel, it's just like saying faster, louder, slicker.
So you like Iron Man 2 better than 1?
No, that's my whole point. I like the first one better than the second, but in the case of Spider-Man, same deal. The first one is still better. I didn't think they improved at all. In other words, yes, the effects are better, but the story is just like, okay, just give me a new bad guy and, bigger battle, bigger punch, bigger action. But I didn't see a change. I didn't see a big change that kind of blew me away. I just saw it was more of the same. It was more, bigger, and faster.
Well, but again, Spider-Man is, with great power comes great responsibility. I mean, what are you going to change? It's always in the background that he does it because of what happened to Uncle Ben, that it was his fault and it's his responsibility. What change can you do? He's just got to fight the better villains.
I just don't like it when a comic book franchise just does the next villain has to be meaner and this and that, or more villains. That's the other thing I hate. More villains.
They could think Doc Ock, they could get the computer graphic arms and make him cool walking up the building. But the first Spider-Man had more heart than the second one. It had more.
Well, but the first one brought in Mary Jane.
I like Willem Dafoe much better than Alfred Molina. Willem Dafoe, I think, he seemed more like that character than Alfred Molina, Doc Ock.
I think Willem Dafoe is a better actor, first of all, to start with. But I think that as a bad guy, that's when you need almost the effects on the bad guy. The bad guy, I think the hero needs more heart. The bad guy needs more technology, so to speak.
Well, see, but here my other problem too is, yes, Mary Jane was there. You should never have started with Mary Jane.
No, that's all.
You should have started with Gwen Stacy. But the death of Gwen Stacy also helps to build Spider-Man's character, and we never saw it. And that's where we lost part of.
That's what they should have done in the first movie. Put Gwen Stacy in but everybody knows Mary Jane Watson more than Gwen Stacy, unfortunately.
I know. Tiger.
Exactly.
Yes.
The jackpot.
Jackpot. You hit the jackpot, Tiger. I understand that, but again, that's why I just felt the first one should have had Gwen Stacy. Should not have had it, and that's what part of it took it away. I like the origin, and yes, we want to get into the thing. It was organic web shooters, not mechanical. Fine, I could.
So Hollywood's infinite wisdom, they put Gwen Stacy in part 3, which
and that was just too little, too late.
Right.
Move on. I mean, but that's the third one, which is another discussion later. Well, let's go to you, Mike. What do you got?
Talking about superhero movies. Superman 2. Classic Christopher Reeve. And I'm also talking Richard Donner edition is much better than the regular edition, if you want to go that far.
Okay.
Which I still haven't watched. I own it.
Yeah. It was more serious, a little bit more serious than the other one. But I'm talking about 2-1, generally speaking.
Yes.
It's 95% same. So 2 is better than 1. Effects-wise, even bad guys-wise, even though Lex Luthor was in the second one, who do you think of when you think of Superman 2?
General Zod.
General Zod and his two friends.
Kneel before Zod.
3, exactly.
Luthor.
3 against 1.
Luthor.
You know, like I say, Lex Luthor again, like almost the first movie, he was comic relief.
You're exactly right. Luthor is a great bad guy, great actor to play him, but it was a little too comic. Whenever I keep seeing Superman the original,
No, that was Ned Beatty.
No, Ned Beatty was like in the first one, but he was like, because they try to get the fun of the 1940s and and that kind of stuff.
Yes.
But then you could say the same thing now, even looking back, Batman with Joker. Compared to the two Jokers, Jack Nicholson.
Yeah,
and
Nicholson was too...
Before Heath Ledger did it, you thought of probably, Jack's Joker.
Right. But now
it's the Jack's Joker's a joke, no pun intended.
Right, and Heath Ledger's Joker is a serial killer.
A serial psychopath madman.
And now that applies to Superman too in a way where, for example, if you think of Zod, there's nothing funny about Zod. The guy is a bad guy, period, and his henchmen, henchwomen,
right?
They're not. They do throw a couple little jokes here or there, but not in the level of Luthor joke.
Right. That he's living underneath Grand Central in the swimming pool with the whole bit.
Mr. Smoker!
You also see how Zod got to where he is, which you get another peek at what Krypton used to be like.
Again, but he's just Zod in the first movie getting zapped into the Phantom Zone.
Into the Phantom Zone.
Right, you don't need to see 45 minutes of Krypton of Superman's father talking to his wife from the back and forth. No, you don't need everything. They go right to the important stuff, the trial and the him being exiled and how he escapes. And the moon stuff was excellent in that film.
That was, for its time, it was like, wow. It was like, don't send me to Planet Houston,
Yep.
In Ursa, they did that through the siren and killed the little boy. He said, and I don't think that's in the second one. I think that's in the Richard Donner edition. That she threw the light from the cop car and killed the little boy on the bicycle.
Wow.
And she said,
I guess I should watch it.
What'd you do? You killed the boy. And she said, I'm paraphrasing, now he's not going to be a man. So she has that man hate, which gave more serious to the character.
That's nasty.
Oh, man.
So it's like, it was a little bit more serious than...
And even when they're having that battle in the city between Superman, it's almost like a Godzilla film.
For its time, for 1981, was it?
Yeah, probably.
Somewhere around there. 81, 82, I think it was 81 though. The fight in the streets, you throwing him against the I still see that Coke sign exploding and all around, the effects wise, story wise,
it's a typical,
acting wise.
It's a darker film. It's a little twisted, a little darker than the original was like candy. This thing is dark and nasty,
I think so.
Kind of.
What, you didn't like when Superman spun around the earth to change time
come on, Mike.
so he can save
I don't think you
Lois
can qualify
Lane?
this as a time travel film.
No,
this
Mike.
is not time traveling.
Like I told you before, I like time travel movies if they're done well. If they're not done well, it's the worst science fiction movie that you can think of.
Superman did a great thing. It brought the comic book movies back from almost nothing. The earlier attempts were really bad, and this was the first hit for a comic as far as comic books go. But it was not the best of the two films. And forget about what's coming afterwards. It's kind of like
everybody loves Richard Pryor as
Richard Pryor, computer geek nerd genius.
Gus. I can't remember his last name, and don't forget Nuclear Man.
That's right, Nuclear Man.
Okay, Carlos, what else you got?
All right, my next film is Evil Dead 2, one of Sam Raimi's classics.
The chin.
Evil Dead 2, it's a bizarre film, and it's weird because when you compare it to Evil Dead 1, Evil Dead 1 has a feel of almost like a student film because it is so super low budget.
Basically was.
The actors are pretty bad. Except for Bruce Campbell, who's the star, who becomes the star of the film by the time you get to the end of the film, and then when you get to Evil Dead 2, he is the star of the film, and it basically built his career as that type of weird
cast member actor. Did anything after that movie for the most part? Can you think of
other cast members
from the first movie?
Bruce Campbell?
Other than Bruce Campbell?
Other than Bruce Campbell.
I couldn't even tell you.
You can't even tell who anyone else really was in that movie.
Not really, because like I said, I think most of the original people were like very
Like
Didn't it take
Sam
like
Raimi's friends, I
almost
think,
2
personally.
years to do that movie?
They were-
I think it was just Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi's friends, because they were friends.
Right, because they were all like, I guess, school buddies, film school buddies. And they
Hey,
were
let's
all-
go make a movie.
Yeah, it's like, let's find a cabin and shoot a movie and hurry up before they catch us type of, guerrilla filmmaking. And it's funny because the second film
Kevin
is
Smith
a
would be
lot like the first film. It's the same stupid cabin in the woods. It's the same story, more or less. The cool thing is that for some reason they got more money for the second film and they amped everything up. And I know this kind of negates what I was talking about earlier about films that are just faster and bigger. But this was faster and bigger, but it was still independent and small. So in other words, it wasn't like Hollywood threw them a couple of $million. No, they were still in a pretty, shoestring budget.
Well, so instead of a couple $100,000, they paid for $1 million for it, whatever. it was.
Right. But what happens is they were able to expand on the special effects they had, especially the makeup effects, the creepiness of the story, the comic relief of the story, which half of it is Bruce Campbell, and how he interacts with these ghosts and monsters and stuff. And it, this movie became a cult classic that got us even a third film, which wasn't as good as the third, but it was pretty good. But again, it's when you compare it to the first that you see a definite improvement in the quality and the entertainment factor of the whole film. Do any of you guys remember this one?
Oh yeah, I remember that one. It's well, like you said, it was fun to watch, but it was still horror. Little campiness,
Over the top.
Well,
that's Sam
But it still
Raimi.
had-
I think it was, at least
but
back
that's
then,
Sam-
especially.
right.
It was
And it's just, you
stick.
get
it's
to
still-
see his style. And some of this stuff carries over to the Spider-Man film. There's certain camera angles that he uses that you're like, if you know his work, you're like, yep, he did that on Evil Dead. I remember Evil Dead or Evil Dead 2. He brings it over. He keeps coming to other movies with the baggage. From his
if it's a good
films.
director, they usually go like Spielberg. You tell a Spielberg movie by watching certain Spielberg scenes, the camera shots, the lighting.
Same thing. Yeah, same thing with Raimi. He's got that.
He's very-
got
the
that
moon
eye.
and a shooting star. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What do you got next, Mike?
Well, I say the best for last.
Ooh.
I got Dark Knight.
Oh boy.
Batman: The Dark Knight. What's there not to say? I mean, we mentioned it before with Heath Ledger, much better Joker. This movie, I love the first one. It was a good origin film and what Batman is, but they got what Joker is. Who the Joker is. He didn't care about money. He's just crazy. He was out to kill people, torture. He didn't care. And also the biggest key for me was always, he got it right where his line of, he goes, we'll be doing this a long time, when he said it to Batman. It just tells you that, yeah, Batman's there because of the Joker.
They're tied.
They're tied together. Their lives are intertwined, and they don't exist without each other. And they got it. It's something that just blew me away when I first saw it. I was like, oh my God, this was a great movie.
And the cool thing also is that he's not just a random bad guy. Not that Batman created him, but it's because of Batman that this guy exists. He's completely nuts. And, as a response to what Batman's doing.
Right. If you take a psychological thing, they're twins. Both of them are twins. Both
Right.
are psychologically disturbed. And what Batman decided, he's psychologically disturbed. He must fight evil. He's gonna be good and fight for good. So in some warped way, think he's gonna bring back his parents. Joker's evil he's killing his parents. No offense to Jack Nicholson shooting him in the first movie, which I thought was totally off character.
Mm-hmm.
But he's just a psychopath. He wants to cause other orphans, unlike that Batman was an orphan. You know what I mean? He gets off of causing
And he's not
destruction.
working for anybody at all. He just wants to make messes everywhere. He wants complete chaos.
He's got all that money from the mom's wizard,
give a
torched
crap.
it. He didn't care.
He torched it.
And his whole thing was he loved to manipulate people. The Joker was about not just killing you; he just wanted to manipulate you.
Well, remember in the movie when they have the fairies, and he's like, he wanted people to like dehumanize themselves. He wanted to prove to Batman that the most nicest person in the world, Harvey Dent, for example, is completely corruptible. No matter how good you are, that he can corrupt them. And that's
He was going to push your buttons just to make you do it.
And Batman almost fell for it at the end. He almost turned evil and would have
Well,
probably killed him.
He wanted to kill. He wanted him to kill to prove his point.
And in the
a
typical
little bit like
Hollywood
Seven.
ending, Joker would have probably died.
Right, but it's a little. I think it's a little callback to Seven, the movie Seven. Again, you're dealing with a bad guy who in order to prove his point, he wants to be killed, and that's what the Joker wants. He wants Batman to kill him to corrupt Batman. And again, This is another one of these typical movies that when you go from 1 to 2, darkness, creepiness, and just an overall different vibe. It's not a very sunny day anymore.
Gotta have a plan.
It's dark and it's seedy and it works. It just I have no idea how can they top themselves.
I don't think the third one's going to be as good as the second one because you can't. Yes. The point.
But it's almost
it was just
fitting in a way because you want Joker to come back if he thought
No,
was alive.
the
You
actor
think he would
itself.
do the third one? No, they would have to go.
No,
to
and
it.
You need to
the-
move on.
And I don't think the director would want that either.
No.
He likes. I mean, the Scarecrow made it from one film to the other, but by the time he got to this film,
But
he
it
was
was-
only the beginning for a
He was
little
like,
bit.
oh yeah, he was in the first one. He was that Scarecrow.
He was the Scarecrow,
Right.
yeah.
It was like,
But
you know,
he was there to kind of bridge the gap, and then they got rid of him. They're done with him. And I
also-
think the Joker, I have a feeling by the time we get to the third, they might do something like that, maybe through CGI or something.
show him in the background.
And he's in
Yeah,
the.
I heard they're probably not going to do that.
Not
They
even
don't
a
want
little
to bring
tease?
anything up. No.
I think that's a shame, though, in a way.
I don't know. Knowing this director, he might like to do the little tease.
I'm just hoping he lets it lie because you don't want to touch it. Don't add anything. The
I
Joker
just hope they don't go
the
the Hollywood route and just do it for the money because if this is going to be the last movie with Nolan and
Well, but they already announced they're going to reboot it.
really.
They're going to reboot it. They already
After the
said
third
they're-
one?
After the third one, they're going to reboot. It's like, oh my god, they're rebooting the corpse is not even dead yet, and they're rebooting already.
Well, because they know they get a moneymaker. Because the second one did so well.
No, of course.
Enough said.
They have the rights, so they have to keep using it, or else they'll lose the rights.
Yeah, true.
What about you, Mike?
Okay, I'm probably going to cause a lot of problems in the sci-fi world by saying this. Empire Strikes Back over Star Wars.
Never heard of it.
Really? It's a little film.
What movie was that? Star Wars?
Well, these two
Empire
movies that
Strikes Back?
started way back in the 70s.
Oh, it's got to be
Also
bad
remember
if it's
it.
sci-fi from the 70s.
70s? Is that like black and white? Do they even talk in the 70s?
Is that Logan's Run?
Do they play
Is that
pianos?
the sequel? All right, go ahead, Mike.
I know a lot of people's going to say Star Wars changed the world, and it did. It changed my life. It did. Okay, I admit to it. But, as I always told this Mike over here, Empire was almost, to me, a perfect movie if you're going to think of it as a trilogy. Or even not even a trilogy. When was the last movie you can think of the bad guys win? When was the last time you had a major character as a puppet and you almost believed that it was living?
Am I allowed to log on the computer and look for the answer?
Can you think of any? Did
No.
the bad guys actually not even lost? They got their butts kicked from the beginning to end. The beginning, they lost in Hoth. They lost Han. They didn't know if he's going to be alive or he's going to be dead. And like I said, and they got a puppet to believe. And I don't care what CGI George Lucas does. Empire with Frank Oz behind him, I think, gave more life than any CGI that he came afterwards. So I always told Mike, compared to as a trilogy, Star Wars had the story, Return had better effects, but if you want both, you have to go with Empire.
Empire, I think, and again, I sound like a broken record, it took a turn from Star Wars to Empire, and the turn was make it darker. Don't make everybody happy.
Right.
And again, this is because they knew this was going to be the middle piece of the story. So in the middle piece, boy gets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl again. This is where the boy
Girl becomes his
lost the
sister.
girl.
Oh, that's not sorry.
Yeah, boy becomes
Boy becomes sister, yeah.
So this was the part of the story where things were going to go nasty, and you're absolutely right. The movie ends, and you're like, well, what do we do now? What the hell's going on?
And I agree, because we discussed it so much, and yes, Mike turned my opinion, but you're right. It opens up with the rebels fleeing, and it ends with the rebels fleeing,
And not even mention...
and Han is gone, so you got a main character, you don't know what happened to him. He's now frozen in carbonite and disappears.
But
so
what's important
what
is
happens,
that you're not angry at the movie. You're enjoying it, and you're like, oh wow, this was great, but I'm not really happy. But it's great.
It's great, right?
It was a
You're
movie
not
that
happy.
came out walking out and said, what the heck just happened?
You know-
Han's gone. They're losing the war. What is this Darth Vader father deal going on? Is he just telling... I remember asking, is he telling the truth? Is that just a ploy? Was he... What? And who's the other?
Right. I remember they were
Yeah, and
speculating. After
the
this
other-
movie came out, between this one and Jedi, people were still speculating. Oh, he must have been lying. They must have been lying.
Right. It was
He
just
lying.
an evil plot that is going to do it.
Right.
And not even mention the effects were much better. From top to bottom, asteroid chase, battle on Hoth.
Right.
Those two scenes alone blew away the Death Star scene.
Well,
No
and I have
offense.
to admit too, I always love it. I tell you, Mike, all the time. My favorite scene is Standby Iron Control with the big cannon leaving from Hoth. Fire, but just seeing on the big screen
Right.
that two shots that hit the destroyers.
The first transports away.
The first transports away. I don't know. It just blew me away when I used to see that scene.
And, you should pick this up, both of you. I thought, music-wise, Empire, give me the Imperial March over anything over Star Wars. Besides the main theme. Besides the main theme.
The Leia theme? Yeah, I know, you're right.
The Leia theme. From top to bottom, I think Empire's soundtrack completely blows away.
Very difficult.
Better than the Ewoks?
Very difficult to improve on a soundtrack from sequel to sequel or from original to sequel. Sometimes all they do is just repeat the same themes over and over again. But for this film, they created a whole bunch of new ones. And again, it added to the whole structure.
And again, what helped, I think, Empire, George Lucas did not direct it. They got a professional director compared to a guy that just did 2 other movies.
Oh, geez, you're dissing the god, George Lucas?
As a director at that time, and then I saw Phantom Menace, maybe still, you gotta admit, Irvin Kershner was a much better director than George. And, no offense, he did not only, George Lucas, it was based on his story. He got a professional screenplay writer. So the story was sharper, better.
Well, yeah, the screenplay went through a couple of different hands, and one of the first people that Lucas picked, I forget the lady's name, apparently the script was horrendous what she did to it, and she died, apparently. But they still gave her credit for
Gold or something like that.
I forget her name.
Yeah.
Then Lawrence Kasdan got involved, and, he really punched it up a lot. And obviously afterwards he worked with Lucas on Raiders,
right,
and Spielberg, and even
he also should have worked him on Return of the Jedi, but that's not
right. But he became a director himself, and he did his own movies. That Lucas needed that extra punch. But the bottom line is that the film changed. It went from one tone, from a happy-go-lucky tone, to a darker tone. But they amped everything. The effects were a million times better. The action. And it just moved. The film just moved.
Even when Luke was training, and he goes into the cave, and he's like, "You will not need the weapons." But yet he goes in, and it's like, "My God, Lord Vader's there? How did Darth Vader get there? Wait a minute, that's his face inside, huh? What does that mean?"
Weird stuff that
it was weird.
And even now they're very vague about what exactly did that mean. You go, well, that meant something, but
it was foreshadowing, saying that he could be Vader. When that was telling you,
his enemy is himself. He has to fight himself because he has to go over what.
Or was it the foreshadowing to saying, "Yeah, hey, that's your father. You guys are related. You're the same."
But that's what was better than so-called the prequels. That it was nothing but bacteria in your blood that gave you the Force, which I still don't believe. Sorry.
No, but definitely.
Ultimately, Empire beat Star Wars.
Yeah.
Did it change the world as Star Wars did? No. But ultimately, as a movie-to-movie, Empire, 9 times out of 10, I would have to give it to Empire.
And you gave it Yoda, which talked about more Jedis. Okay, other people, he's a master. It kind of gave you more of the backstory, too, other than the first movie. Yeah, we blew up the Death Star. Okay, we're done. We won. Yay. Nope, wait a minute. We had other Jedis. You had other things going on. So that opened up all of us fans because, wow, there's other things out there. Now you're finding out more of the backstory.
And the whole Yoda thing is very true, that if the puppet did not work, if you did not believe the puppet was real, the whole movie falls apart.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Lucas said that.
Yeah,
he said if he was hoping it was going to work.
If you see the background pictures of George, it looks awful.
And the working progress puppets that they were testing out. Right. At one point, I read on the making of book that they actually tested a little monkey. They wanted a monkey to dress like a little.
Boxy would have made a movie. Oh, that would have been
kind of. And they realized that was insane. It wasn't working.
I'm sorry.
But it would have fallen apart. Now, the other thing about the fact that Frank Oz gets a lot of credit, obviously, for operating the puppet, doing the voice. And at first, the voice, he thought it might have been a temp track because they were like, let him do the voice, and then we'll dub it over. But then they realized they liked it, and they kept it. But the other important thing about it is Mark Hamill doesn't get enough credit because he has to act. Not act, but react to the puppet. So if he doesn't act like this is a real thing in front of him, it also falls apart.
That's true.
And that's another thing a lot of people forget, that between Frank Oz and Mark Hamill, they made the puppet look real.
That is true.
But it's another one of these
and
great
you got
films.
Boba Fett.
Where? Oh, that's
Where? No, that's the next
that's
film.
the third one.
Okay, anything else, Carlos, you got?
Yes, I have one last movie, obviously not as important as Empire Strikes Back, but another example of one of these things that going dark makes the movie sometimes come out great.
Gremlins 2?
No. Lethal Weapon 2. The first film, you introduce the characters. The second film, you just practically destroy the characters. I remember how good the second film was. It introduced new characters, like the Joe Pesci character, which is a very memorable, slick talking, quick dealing type of a...
Okay, it's London.
Oh my God, he's so annoying. But in this film, I mean, the whole first film, you had the whole theme of, you know,
whatever Leo gets.
He's always, you know, the Mel Gibson character, he's like a crazy cop, and he's always trying to kill himself, and he's on the edge, you know, because something happened to his wife at one point. This film, they were smart enough to, well, how do we make it darker? Well, you know what? Let's go explore what actually happened, you know, to this person and to his, I don't want to say girlfriend, but like the romantic interest a little bit in the second film.
The first girl that he actually loved after his wife, so to speak.
Right, and it ties it together, and it made it such a darker film, a much more serious, less funny, because the first film was kind of funny.
Right.
And this one has, you know, it's
besides Joe Pesci was the comic.
Right. They kind of pushed it off to Pesci and let Mel Gibson just go dark and go
He was crazy. He was crazy, but lovable crazy in the first one almost. But then he was still a little crazy in the second one, but he was a little darker.
But that's where I disagree. I still like the first one because you threw in Joe Pesci, which was the comedy relief. It was more serious in the first one because of, it's how he couldn't deal that his wife died. And that every day he wanted to put a bullet in his head. And that, you got the old cop that's getting ready to retire. He's trying to stop him. Oh, I'm not too old for this crap. But it's just the point, that to me was more serious than the second movie.
I disagree because in the first film, it's always about something that happened a long time ago. In the second film, it's happening to him right now and then. You know, it's happening right in front of him. This new girl, who's a new character, it's all happening to him right away.
But that's the point of the first movie, is that he's still grieving. He can't live his life because he lost his wife. And the point of the movie was because meeting Murtaugh and his family
started to get his life back in order. He wanted to get his life back in order.
To me, that was more serious, and let's throw in Joe Pesci. Okay, it's a London.
See, but Joe Pesci really doesn't affect him.
It's just comedy.
The comedy relief doesn't affect the
But you didn't need Pesci. And you didn't need to have his girlfriend show up, and then she gets killed. Oh, now it's all over again, so let's go.
What the girlfriend does, it brings it to the present, and it brings him to the edge again, and it pulls him back at a certain point where he comes back to normal, let's say.
Normal, he snaps. He basically gives up his badge, said, okay, we're going to go after these guys and take him down. And then somehow they get his job back in the third movie.
I also like
he gave up his gun and his badge.
The bad guys on the second film are much more believable
than the
first.
Guys are wrong.
No. Yeah. It showed a deeper character too.
Now, after the second, that's a whole other story.
I'm not talking about the third.
Or four.
But no, the first one was much better.
Third and fourth, like I said, once you get to number 3, most movies.
I know. Fine.
How much money are we going to make for this?
I still like the first one.
Hey, they might.
And it was at Christmas time.
You never know; they might make more.
They were thinking about it. They were up to a year ago. They were until Mel Gibson wanted to do it.
All right. Well, I think this basically wraps it up for our special on the movies we believe are better sequels than the originals. I'd like to thank once again Michael Squared, for joining us. And please join us again next time for another episode of Geekfest Rants. Goodbye.
Rise before Zod. Kneel before Zod.
Is there no one on this planet to even challenge me?